Welcome to the Southeast Retirement Planners Podcast, where we will go beyond the balance sheet with our guests, not only to share from our personal experience as financial advisors of over 25 plus years, but also to learn from our guests about the issues and topics that are important to them. Our firm specializes in taking care of the financial plans for individuals and small businesses by helping our clients identify their individual goals and taking a conservative and ongoing approach to helping accomplish them. We are located in Hickory, North Carolina, and look forward to continuing to serve our clients and our community. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode.
Hey, and welcome to the Southeast Retirement Podcast. Today, I'm Les Stewart, and I'm Les Stewart every day, as a matter of fact. And we have with us Lesly Collins.
Yes, and I'm glad to be here.
We suckered her into coming in here with us today. This is our first podcast, so I've been scaring her to death about it. And so be easy on her as you're watching this. But Lesly works with us in the office and has been with Southeast Retirement Planners for how long?
For just a little over 2 years.
A little over 2 years, and she does a great job. And today we'll be talking about items that you need to know for a solid financial footing, and we'll get into that a little bit more here in a minute. But Southeast Retirement Planners is an independent financial advisory firm, and we work with people of all ages and people that are interested in improving their financial picture. So one thing that I want, before we get started, I wanted to reference is our website. And you can go to SCRetirementplanners.com and check out, there's a lot of different things on the website, including what we've been doing recently, some bank of some of our podcasts and webinars that we've had. There's also some calculators and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
definitely some great information on there.
Yeah, and you can also reach us through the website, or you can call the phone number here on the site. So, what brought us to this topic today is we have recently started a new program where we work with what we call early entrants. Lesly, and you've helped work with some of these customers and clients, and as we work with these people, we take them through our asset map process, which you can access and load your information in by using the QR code on the screen here. But we use the asset map and some of our planning softwares that we have, and we work with early entrants. And what early entrants we consider is it's individuals that are just starting the planning process, starting the process of, saving. It can be individuals or families. And, Lesly we both have families, yes, obviously, but yours is a little younger than mine is overall. I think your children are how old?
So I have a almost 13 and almost 4-year-old.
Yeah.
So they've got a few years before they start planning, but early is always better.
Right, and we've taken you through this planning process as well. Yeah. Even though you work there, we've gone through the process, and I think you found it valuable.
Very.
And so what we do is you may be someone that is, maybe doesn't have a ton of money saved, but you think you can see that there's a need to look at your financial picture. That could include many issues, which we're going to discuss today. But I think after this, you'll realize the importance of maybe doing an early entrant plan, and it's something that's affordable for younger families and people that don't necessarily have a lot of money now but want to work toward having that.
Yeah.
So, like I said, the items to know for solid financial footing is what we're talking about today. And so the first item, we'll just jump right into it, is budgeting. Leslie, have you ever done a budget before?
I sure have. I actually still budget everything, every dollar. I do because I like to know exactly where our money's going and what I can spend on other things like shopping.
Well, that's good. Well, to a lot of people, and I may be one of those people, budgeting is almost the equivalent of saying the word diet to someone. It's not always fun. Some people feel very comforted by knowing that they have a budget. Some people don't like the fact that they're confined to allocating their money to something. But really, that's what a budget is allocating your money.
Yeah, and that would totally be, my husband and I, because I budget everything, and he's more like, well, we can do this and we can do that. I'm like, well, yeah, let's just put that in the budget, or that's, this section. And it's a little bit more difficult for him, but I do budget.
And there's several ways that you can budget. One way is what's called the 50-30-20 budget. And someone has sat down and over the years and found that these are percentages that work, but the way that this works is you allocate 50% of your money, your monthly income, to housing, insurance, transportation, 30% to wants, which is like eating out, going to the movies,
shopping,
yes. If that's a fun thing for you, and then take 20% to savings, which is probably quite a bit more than most people save on a monthly basis. But that's a very I think worthy goal to try to do that budget type. One thing is that budget, you probably wouldn't like that budget. That probably wouldn't work for you because it's not defined enough as to where you're spending your money.
Yeah.
Those are pretty broad categories.
Yeah.
The one you just talked about is the allocation method. So that's basically, I know I'm getting $3,000 a month or $5,000 a month, and I start with my bills and I allocate what those are going to take, and then I work down and take every dollar and put it in a category until I'm at zero when I subtract all those out. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's what I do. So, there's just so many bills that kind of fluctuate every month. Most of them are kind of set, what that amount is every month. But after a certain amount, then anything that's extra, you got to consider, okay, am I going to put this towards another debt, or am I going to just kind of put this for our vacation money? And that's the amount that I just kind of adjust every month.
Right. Another very popular method is pay yourself first. And what that means is do your savings before you do anything else.
Yeah. I feel like, and sorry to interrupt, but I feel like acting like you're a payment, it's good to kind of start saving, because for some people it's hard to pay yourself or to save money. But if you consider it as a payment, people are more than likely to pay that bill or pay that or make that payment. So if you just say, okay, well, this is a payment of $50 a month, you're going to want to pay that before you start deducting for other stuff that's maybe not as important.
And I'll probably reference this very often throughout this podcast, but my family's a little older than yours. I have 2 kids in college right now and another one soon to come. That's very difficult to find a way to save when there's so much outflow, but it's still important, because after they're out of college, my wife and I still have to do what we need to, and we still want to retire at some point and that kind of thing. So pay yourself first. And a good resource for that is your company retirement plan, if that's an option. That's a way to do that. And then finally, one that's kind of gotten popular over the last several years, well, I've actually heard about it 20 years ago, is the envelope system. And you said you told me on the way over here that you've used that before. You want to explain how that worked for you? Yeah,
so I did try the envelope method for a little bit, and it works. It wasn't my favorite. Now I'm down to like one envelope, and then I just write down what each thing in there's for.
So the way most people picture it, and it's described, is when you get paid, you have envelopes with categories on them, and you basically go get cash and fill those envelopes with how much you want to spend. And once that envelope's empty, you're done with that category.
Yep.
Correct. I actually myself have tried that with my family, and me and my wife tried that, and we kept robbing from other envelopes to spend, and it just didn't work for me. So the when you're talking about budgeting for a spending plan, I don't think there's one size fits all. You have to find something that works for you, and sometimes that takes some experimentation, but it is important. And the other thing is, unless you really track what you're spending your money on, you don't really know where you're wasting money. There's so many things in our daily life that we can spend money on and not even realize it, you know. So find a method. There's probably some other methods out there, but just a personal story, my wife and I just found out that basically through trial and error that just keeping money in different accounts that we have access to, and we know when that account is nearing empty, that was our best way to really allocate our money and save and do that kind of thing. So there's not one size fits all on that. So the next item that you want to focus on for a solid financial footing, something you need to know, is the dreaded word debt. How do you feel about debt?
I don't like it.
Not many people do, but do you have any debt?
I do. I don't have a lot because my husband does not. I mean, Nathan does. He does
feel
not.
Good when
he does not. He can't have more than $100 on a credit card because he'll freak out.
That's awesome.
So,
I don't think anybody likes debt, but us as Americans have grown comfortable with debt. The average American family has about $92,000 worth of debt.
That's a.
Now that's including mortgage and everything else, but you're talking about average, so you're talking about a lot of people that should have paid off their mortgage probably by now. And there's a lot of that is, kind of bad debt. And we'll talk about the good and bad debt, and that's what's important to know about debt. It's not necessarily that debt is all bad. Obviously debt-free makes things easier when you don't have those payments. And that's really what I don't like about debt, is having to make the payments each month. But, the first kind of debt is revolving debt. So that's where you use the debt. So you borrow, you pay it off, and then you borrow it again. So, a great example of that is a credit card. And most of us have some sort of experience with that. Some of us, I've actually gone through some early where I had credit card debt that in our family that we kind of got ahead of us and snowballed out of control, and we kind of had to pump the brakes and catch up with that. And it was a good learning experience, but one I wish I didn't have to go through. Another kind of debt is non-revolving. So that's like when you borrow a lump sum of money and then you make regular payments to pay that off. Example of that would be like, a car or a house or, several other things that you could buy. And then kind of to piggyback on those are secured debt and unsecured debt. So secured debt is like when you purchase the car, the lender, usually the bank, holds the secured debt as the secured debt is because there's collateral, meaning that if you didn't pay that, they could come take that item that you borrowed for away from you.
Yeah.
Get your car repossessed or take your house from you or something like that. Unsecured is, once again, back to the credit card. That's where you've borrowed money for different things, and you don't really have anything that someone could take from you, but someone could take legal action on you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, like a personal loan too.
Personal
so not just
loan,
like credit cards. But.
Right. And you know, kind of at the end of the day, that's really what a credit card is a personal loan. So, you know, once again, not all debt is bad, and we just about all have to have it at some point, especially if you're wanting to purchase a house, because it's such an expensive asset that you have to buy. You have to pay incrementally on it. So we'll move on to the next thing. So, you know, knowing your net worth is another thing that, you know, is important. And the net worth is basically, here are my assets, here's what I owe, you know, here's my debt, here's what I have, you subtract them, and that gives you what your net worth is. So hopefully if you did that or someone did that, it would be a positive number.
Yeah.
But often when we're, you know, starting our families, coming out of college or starting career, that's not necessarily the case. It can be a negative number, and that's okay. It's not ideal, but it's okay. But using that budget, you know, you can work toward that being a positive number.
Yeah. Just pay it off a little bit.
Right.
Little by little.
And the reason you need to know net worth is if you're trying to improve, you need to see that number improving as well. So it's not like you need to check your net worth every day, but maybe once a year, kind of do a little, you know, balance sheet and see how much do I owe, how much do I have, and here's what my net worth is. So that leads into, we talked about debt. To get debt, you have to have credit. Okay. And when's the last time you checked your credit score?
Well, I would say a few months ago when we purchased my new vehicle.
Okay. You know, I get to see my credit score every time I pay my credit card bill, because I do it on an online app that throws it right up in my face every time.
Yeah, which is a good point, because if people are unsure of where they can check their credit, you know, most major banks on their apps, they've got that option for you to kind of look at and keep track of.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah, and so, you know, I used to have kind of the thought process, I really don't care what my credit score is because I don't really want to borrow any money anyway. Well, you know, now I'm running a business, you know, have kids going to college, and those things come into play. And in fact, you know, when you apply for insurance, if you have a low credit score, that can even keep you from getting life insurance, for example.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's different places you can check your credit. A lot of times there's some ways now online that it used to be this feeling that if I check my credit, it's going to make my score go down, because the credit company rating agency is going to think I'm checking my credit because I want to borrow some more, which your credit score is usually a number between 300 and 900, and 900 is the best and 300 is pretty bad.
Yeah.
So, and you know, that's just based on how much you owe, how much payments you have versus how much income you have, and then you know, your history of being able to make payments and pay your debts off.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you have a low credit score, it can make things rough for you. Like if you want to go borrow a car, you can probably borrow a car, but instead of getting that 0 to 3%,
yeah, you're probably
loan,
stuck with something high.
Yeah, you're a higher risk of not paying, so they're going to charge you more to loan you that money. And the same thing goes for just about anything else you buy. For your credit cards will be a higher interest rate and that kind of thing. So pay attention to your credit score. You know, I don't know that you need to stress out your life about it, but if you take care of the other stuff, the credit score takes care of itself as well. So, the next thing that we want to talk about is saving. Do you remember when you started saving the first time? Was that something your parents made a priority for you to start saving or
No,
anything like that?
That's not something that my parents taught me at home. That's not something that even school teaches you, unfortunately. But if I had to guess, I would say when I turned 17, I thought, gosh, I need to save some money. Now, I love to spend money. Do not get me wrong, but just as much as I like to spend, I like to save. And this is probably where my budgeting came from. Was
Right.
because I wanted to start saving some money. And it's not always easy, but you got to sometimes do it. So I started saving at a young age, not a whole lot, but of course, as you get older, you kind of start realizing things and you start doing better about that.
Right. And that's, that's something that I think as we want to get things so quickly today, and I'm as bad as anybody, but, you start thinking about, well, I need to save this much to get this or to reach retirement at this age or whatever. And so you immerse yourself into it. And just like my diet, I'm trying to lose 30 pounds in 3 days instead
Get
of
that instant gratification.
Right. It's that small everyday or every month savings plan that you can have, which once again, if you work for a company that has a company retirement plan or set up something with your advisor or bank where you automatically send money to a savings vehicle, before you know, you have a large amount of money from saving a lot of small amount of money. It sounds simple, but a lot of people don't do it. And, honestly, I found this stat that the average American, or basically half of Americans, if they had $1,000 emergency bill pop up. For example, I just took my truck in yesterday to get it. It was acting funny, took it in, and voila, $1,000 that I need to pay the people to work on it. Yeah. So, which really makes me mad, by the way. But that's how much it costs. But half of Americans would have to go take on additional debt to pay that. Yeah. So, we recommend, and this is not news that only we have priority to, but we recommend 3 to 6 months of savings that is just readily available at your fingertips, where you can get it within a day or two.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of that saying, you're poor unless you have the 6 months reserve saved for like what you're...
No, I haven't really heard that.
Yeah, I actually grew up hearing that a lot in Florida.
Oh, okay.
So people would always say, you're poor unless you have that 6 months, backup saved. But I guess in an emergency, if somebody loses a job,
right.
I mean, that kind of is a good cushion to have.
So that's the thought behind that 3 to 6 months is if something were to happen and you would lose your job, your company go out of business, or you get fired for some reason, you've got some time to make a good choice to transition to the next job and keep your family taken care of and that kind of thing. The other thing is, we call it an emergency fund. Losing a job is not the only emergency that can pop up. As I just told you, your car could break down, your roof could need to be replaced. There could be some kind of illness or sickness that's not covered by insurance or some, and having kids, they could do something stupid.
They can. They can. They're expensive.
Cost. Yeah.
Yes.
So that to me is one of the biggest priorities as a young family, and that's what we tell people that come into the early entrance. Let's start a plan to before we start even worrying about debt. Let's start saving that cushion. Yeah. To do. It's almost like an additional insurance plan for you. So the next step of savings is investing. And, when you came over, you had been investing and have done well with that. And what motivated you to do that but before you met us, of course?
Yeah, I think it's just knowing that I have a family, knowing that there's people that I had to take care of myself. I feel like people make this life or the way they live, they're comfortable. Well, you got to think about, what happens when you don't have that income? Right. Some people think about today and now, and that's okay, but the future is important because you don't know how long you're going to live. Yeah. But you want to make sure that you're able to live life just as comfortable as when you were working, when you're retired too. So I think family's what just kind of did it for me, being a young mother. Right. I was like, I got to start saving because... Yeah.
So, I started investing a little differently. I don't know if I watched a movie that got me excited about it. I know I took some classes in college that really got me excited about investing. But, it was the excitement that really got me into it. But then what I learned was the long-term success of that is not all that exciting of investing. Yeah. It's an incremental process that you need to, take step by step and use boring words like diversification and allocation and all that stuff we talk about on a daily basis with clients, and we have found some way to be excited about it, but a lot of people don't seem to think that diversification is an exciting word.
No.
So, it's important to invest, and the returns are much better right now, at least, than what you can get by just parking your money in a bank account or in a box under your bed. Over time, if you want to use the power of compound interest at its fullest, you need to, find a way to invest outside of that, if that's appropriate. And like you said, it's a long-term type thing. It's not something that you do for next week's groceries or something like that. One of the biggest purchases and one of the biggest things as a young family that you have to deal with is home ownership. When did you buy your first house? How old were you?
Let's see. I would say about 22.
22?
Yeah, 22.
So probably one of the most exciting times of your life, probably one of the scariest times, right?
Oh, yeah. It was scary. But it was good. It was good because you're investing, to yourself.
Right. So a lot of people do look at it as an investment. It's definitely something that you will probably get more out of than anything you do. In my opinion, some people look at it incorrectly in that they think their home is a investment that they can get money out of, and fact of the matter is most people never, while they're alive, get money out of their house. It's usually the next generation benefits from that, and that's okay. But I don't look at it as something that's going to give me cash flow or a paycheck down the road, really. But it's something certainly necessary. A lot of people these days aren't buying homes, though. They're renting.
Yeah, a lot of people are renting right now. Yeah. I mean, the market is kind of hot, so people are selling. But I think some people don't even like to have, some cost that may come with the home. Right. Emergencies.
Right.
So
one key to when you're buying a house, in my opinion, and looking at researching this is, don't buy more house than you can afford. Your rent check or even rent more than you can afford. Your rent or house payment shouldn't be more than 30% of your monthly take-home pay. And if you can keep it under that, you should be able to live comfortably. And, as your pay increases, maybe you can upscale your home at that point. I know that was something that I took to heart when I got my first house, and I kind of bought a little starter house. I think it might have been, now this was probably about the time you were born, Leslie, but it was probably $70,000 was the cost of my house. And the average house now that Americans own is $250,000 is the average house. So, that's a pretty good average cost there. A lot of times today when you need to purchase a house, you've got to come to the table for the bank to loan you money anywhere between 3.5% and 20%, depending on what kind of loan you want. 20% of $250,000 is a pretty good chunk of money there.
And if you really think about it, all the other stuff that we've kind of talked about kind of ties back to this.
Right.
You know, you're trying to get a mortgage. Well, guess what? You're going to need credit.
Right.
You're going to need some savings. So those are, everything kind of falls in
Right.
together with that aspect.
If you could go back in time, would you have bought your house right when you did? If you could do it over, or would you have waited a little? I mean, what was there anything you could go back and change about when you purchased or how you purchased your home?
So I probably wouldn't change the first home that we purchased, but if I could go back, I probably would have waited a couple more years before we bought our second home.
That's funny. Yeah.
So we thought, I mean, it's been a great decision, but if I could go back knowing what I know now,
Right.
definitely would have waited just a couple of years for the purchase of our second home.
Yeah.
But the first one, I thought the timing was great. So
I've got a story just like that. My second home, so bought the first home, housing market was doing good. We made money within 3 years when we sold our first home. Family started growing, wanted the big house, bought the big house, changed jobs, had to sell the big house, and my wife and I took the proceeds from selling our house and went to dinner that night. So lived and learned there, and don't know if I would do it over, but do it differently, but would have liked to have turned out differently.
Yeah.
For me, so when you make money, you have to pay taxes, and that's another thing you need to know about. Not everybody that owes the same amount of taxes. Obviously, the more money you make or the more profits you make on your investments or whatever you're doing, the more taxes you owe. But it's important to know how much taxes you pay each year. Do you know how much your annual tax bill is?
No, I don't.
Yeah, well, and
it's
not easy to know. I mean, you can look at your tax return unless you know what line to look at.
Yeah, I probably could tell you like an estimate, but
Right.
not really. I don't.
Right.
I probably should pay attention a little bit more to those numbers. I just know it's kind of taken care of. So
Well, most of us pay our taxes just through our paycheck. It's taken out of our paycheck, and we have no clue. I hear a lot of people say, "Yeah, I got money back last year," and they feel like they've made money when they do that. You're really not making money. You're getting what you've already earned back to you, because you've paid too much through your paycheck each month, or had too much withheld from something else. Just ask your tax professional next time, or your financial advisor, to look over your tax return and say, how much am I paying, and is there a way that I could maybe lessen that amount. And we're not talking about cheating the government or anything, but there's some moves, and that's one thing we do with our clients is, and you know this, you hear us talk about it all the time, is allocate that money in a certain way, maybe save a little more in your retirement account that really doesn't hurt your monthly budget that much. That can make a pretty nice impact on how much taxes you owe each year. And that keeps more money in your account and less in Uncle Sam's account.
yeah.
So the last item, and this is something I know that I've worked with you on, is insurance. When we did your plan, I hope you don't mind me talking about this a little bit.
Go ahead.
When we did your plan, we found that you guys were lacking a little bit in life insurance. And that's the majority of young families. That's really the first thing that we see is if something were to happen to one of the wage earners, the one that's left would be kind of in a pretty big pinch, not outside of just it being terrible that you would lose a family member or someone you loved, but then to have a financial burden on top of that is not something I would want to happen if I were to go to my family.
Yeah, and sadly, that's something that people don't think about until something happens.
Right.
So being able to talk about it and think about it ahead of time kind of just gets you ready for a situation. Not that it will happen, but that way you're kind of taken care of, or the person you're leaving behind will be
for sure
for something like that.
And actually, Ryan and I just did a couple of weeks ago a podcast on the importance of life insurance, and I would, if you're listening to this, I'd suggest you go look for that and listen to it. It's something that, once again, to repeat what's in that we have experienced with clients here recently in these tough times, unfortunately, that has really hit close to home, and we've seen good situations where insurance has really helped some people. We've seen situations where having insurance would have helped some people, and those are the cases that we want to try to avoid with our clients and get as many people as we can. The appropriate amount. It's not that everybody should have a ton of life insurance. Just get enough to take care of your needs. Some other kinds of insurance that we pay for, and an insurance is basically to take the liability or the burden of something going wrong and placing that in somebody else's hands. Mm-hmm. So you're paying the insurance company to take on the burden of a financial distress, basically. So there's health insurance. If we get sick, that's very expensive these days. If we didn't have health insurance, that'd be a problem.
Yeah, it would. And I think that's probably the worst thing that my husband feels like he has to pay. It's health insurance, because he will not go to a doctor even if he's dying. So to him, he's like, well, I guess for the kids, we've got to have it. Yeah. But I think that's probably the hardest thing that he has to pay, because it's so expensive. Mm-hmm. But it is important, because if something happens, you've got it. You've got coverage, right. And it could go really wrong if you don't.
If you've had health insurance all your life, you really probably don't truly know what the total bill on most of those health expenses are. I mean, I was complaining about my truck. That would probably be a small health care bill.
That's probably really small compared to something without coverage.
Homeowners insurance or renters insurance, if something were to happen, your house burned down, that's something that you can't just go. Most people can't go withdraw money out of their checking account and purchase a new home. You want to have that. Auto insurance, obviously, if you wreck your car, it's hard to replace. You want to have that. And we talked about life. And then another one that a lot of people kind of neglect is disability insurance. And, you talk about dying, but a lot of people get injured or sick and are not able to work anymore. And, unfortunately, the company that they work for, I know our company, it would be tough for us to pay someone when there's no work being done, because we depend on that work to keep our company running, So a lot of times if you don't have disability insurance, you just lose that wage, and you lose your ability to earn because you can't find another job. And so disability insurance is there for that reason. But check your insurances, and also check, especially your auto and homeowners and that kind of thing. Every so often, shop it out and see if you can find a lower rate or a better coverage, and make sure you've got the right coverage. I mean, a lot of times people's homes will increase in value, or they'll make additions to it or something. And same thing with life insurance. I mean, we go through different stages of earning, and also we go through, different stages of liability with, for example, right now, if something were to happen to you, you not only want to take care of your husband to make sure he can get by, but you're probably going to want to have something there for your kids to make sure that they can go to college and that kind of thing. And so, but once they're out of college, that's not a need that you need to cover anymore, so it's important to review all those things very often. I would say once every 2 years at most, and just see if you can improve on that. So, that's kind of just the short list. There's a lot of other financial items that need to be covered, but if I think if you go through these 9 items and have a pretty good feel for where you're at as a family, and what your next steps are with that, I think that you've got a pretty good start. Don't you agree?
I think all of these are a great start for anybody, from beginners or even people who have already been kind of going through these things.
Right.
It's just some good insight for different topics that sometimes we just don't talk about enough.
So if just a little plug for us, if you're looking for some help with getting started with this, we'd love to talk to you about it. Love to talk to you about our early entrant planning process and show you how we can work with you and help you get to where you want to go, and incrementally working towards your goals and your financial process. So we appreciate your time today. Once again, check out southeastretirementplanners.com, seretirementplanners.com, and we will see you next time.
Yeah, till then.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member of FINRA, SIPC. Southeast Retirement Planners is not affiliated with LPL Financial or registered as a broker-dealer or investment advisor.